Is the Philippines still an attractive investment destination at a time of uncertain water contracts and volatile global trade? Here to share his insights is Chris Nelson, Executive Director of the British Chamber of Commerce Philippines. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thank you. Thanks for being here, and Happy New Year to everyone.
Happy New Year to you. Good to have you here. Now, your outlook for 2020 on foreign investments in the Philippines.
Well, from the British Chamber, we're actually very confident. I think you've got to look at the fact that the Philippines has got a high growth rate, 6%. And I think one thing that's very attractive to British companies, of course, is your population. It's over 108 million people. It's young, it's dynamic, and that presents great opportunities. And I think also, I'm sure everyone's aware of Brexit and all the discussions have been going on. And that's, of course, making companies look to other areas. And I think there is a great interest in the Philippines and in Southeast Asia in general. And what we need to do is make sure the Philippines stays at the foremost of British companies.
Mm-hmm. Now, the FDIs have posted a consistent decline in the past quarters. Why is this so? And does this mean the Philippines is unattractive to foreign investors compared to the rest of ASEAN 5?
I think there's a few reasons for it. I think, first of all, if you take this CITRA law, which has obviously been pending, and that's obviously creating some uncertainty. And I know there's been ongoing discussions about, obviously, the issue of the tax holidays and the PEZA zone. I think once that can be finalized, and we hope, obviously, that that will listen to both sides, I think that will send a good signal if that's passed. I think the other thing the Philippines has to be aware of, you're competing against countries, in particular, let's say Vietnam, who go back regularly to the UK and promote. And that happened for the Philippines. We had a great delegation in 2018. And I would encourage much more visits by Philippine officials. And I also believe that we should be propagating, obviously, the passage of the ease of doing business. That's actually been a very positive development. And I think that's actually something that we are continuing to promote back in the UK.
Mm-hmm. And also, let's talk about the country's investment grade scores from credit rating agencies. This helps?
It does help, actually. I think the Philippines has been on an upward track for a long time. It's been improving its grade ratings. I think the other thing that people have to bear in mind, particularly when you're looking at the UK, and I actually would like to sort of say thanks to the media, we've constantly got to promote to the UK and UK companies, because there's a lot of other competing areas for investment. And I think we have to highlight the opportunities in the Philippines, and also to try and create, as the Philippines, as a base for companies to do business across all of Southeast Asia, and of course across ASEAN.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's talk about Build, Build, Build. The ambitious infrastructure program has expanded to 100 projects. It's counting on public-private partnerships. So what needs to be done so that investors will actively participate in these projects?
Well, I think if you look for, obviously there's some efforts now to relax the Foreign Investment Act. I think that's one of the plans. And I think that will encourage, again, I think also discussions and promoting to companies back in the UK, what are the opportunities? The Build was a key focus in 2018. I strongly support it, the Chamber does. I think it's a very ambitious program. And I also think it's good they're including the private partnership, because we want to see this driving forward, because if the country's growing at 6% and we can improve the infrastructure, port congestion, of course, traffic, then that will accelerate even more so.
But then there are some concerns about the president's statements against publicly listed companies. How do investors view his statements on, for example, such Manila Water, Maynilad?
Well, look, first of all, of course, the British companies not invest in those utilities. We're not privy to the specific discussions. What we'd say, of course, is, as like all chambers, we obviously promote the sanctity of contracts. What we'd like to see, of course, is that both sides discuss this, and at the end of the day, there should be a fair agreement on both sides, and we obviously would like to see that go forward. And I think it's important to have those discussions, and I think that would obviously help the mood if those discussions are had.
Mm-hmm. It's very important to note that the British government privatized water services in 1989. Now, can we learn anything here about balancing business interests and public welfare?
Yeah, that happened in 1989, and it's actually worked well. It's produced a lot of investments. It produced a lot more transparency. However, of course, it's got to be balanced. And it's obviously the water companies signed up to a pledge in order to focus on providing and delivering and a lot more new investments. And that's one thing I'd just like to encourage. Again, I think when the Philippine officials came in 2018, they looked first of all at London transport to see how effective that was. And again, I think there's great opportunities to show to people how a private partnership working on providing utilities, whether it's transportation or water or even on electric, is a good opportunity. And we would welcome people to go to the UK and see it operating.
Now, about ABS-CBN's franchise renewal, this has been in the news lately. Is this a cause for concern?
Well, like again, UK, we can't invest obviously in media. That's part of the negative investment list. Again, I don't know the specifics of the argument. What I would say is that we obviously want to see a good media. I've had interviews with ABS-CBN. They've done very well in their business section. I think, again, what we would like to see is a discussion going on between the two sides and for it to be settled. But overall, what we want to see is a very active media like your own, obviously promoting business, because we can use that back in the UK, and that's at a great advantage.
Finally, what should be the administration's priorities in its last 2.5 years in office?
Well, look, I think they've got to continue on the ease of doing business. I think they've got to look at passing, which I anticipate, obviously, the Foreign Investment Act. We'd like to see the Retail Trade Act, because we think that will boost investments. And then finally, I'd just like to say I think they should look for some quick wins as well. For example, well, e-commerce. I have to also say that I think there has been improvement in terms of government regulation. I live here for 16 years. Getting my driving license renewed is much quicker now. The reason I say that is I think those are a great support to the people. But I think the signal they should really work on, of course, is for us, obviously, how can we produce more foreign investment? And that's through the Foreign Investment Act. It's through the Retail Trade Act. And I would just like to commend again the passage of the ease of doing business and further see that rolled out and also get feedback so that work can even get better, so that would allow more small to medium-sized enterprises to come in.
I appreciate your insights, Chris. Thank you for coming over.
Thank you too.
Chris Nelson there of the British Chamber of Commerce, Philippines.